Hey, what's up, everybody? I'm Amobi Okugo, host of Money Talks, a new podcast from a frugal athlete in partnership with Billion or Bust Media. Money Talks explores the world of business behind professional athletes. I speak with financial advisors, business managers, marketing and PR professionals who specialize in running the business of being a pro athlete. Tune into Money Talks on Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can also find new episodes on billionourbustmedia.com and afrugalathlete.com. Again, billionourbustmedia.com or afrugalathlete.com.
All right, folks, welcome to the 2 Cents Podcast. This is episode 21. I cannot believe it. We are rocking and rolling. I don't know, it could be 22. One of them's a bonus, so I think it is 21. Listen, as always, like, subscribe. I'm your host, Jay Richardson, and we are going to get right into it. Some cool things I want to discuss at the end of the show. Just obviously the playoff rankings is the biggest thing I want to talk about because a couple little surprises in there that really have some people's panties in a bunch, and that's cool. That's part of it. That's no big deal. You know, you don't have to love all the moves that the college football playoff committee makes. Ohio State fans haven't loved them very often in the last 3 years, but it is what it is, and we're going to discuss it and get into it. But first things first, let me get us through the NFL, just news and notes over the weekend and, through Monday night because some interesting things happened. One thing that is not that interesting and that we should have expected, but man, I think a lot of us just didn't think it was going to get this bad for the Cleveland Browns. But the Cleveland Browns lost to the Denver Broncos. The Denver Broncos, who were on their third, fourth string quarterback, a guy who I won't even say his name because I don't remember his name because it doesn't matter. He never played in an NFL game until this past weekend, and don't worry, that was enough to beat the Browns because the Browns are the dysfunctional Browns led by a guy named Freddie Kitchens, who was a running backs coach last year and somehow got bumped up to head coach in Hughes' absence, in the wake of his firing. And they kept him there as the head coach. Every press conference, even he still can't believe he's the head coach. They asked him if he was concerned about his job security. He said, why would I be concerned about that? I'm never concerned about that. They're going to do what they're going to do. And that's a guy who really wants to get fired, who's hoping that they fire him because he knows he doesn't belong there. The team knows it. I don't get why he's still there in these positions to make these critical coaching decisions, and he almost always makes the wrong one. Doesn't understand clock management, doesn't understand personnel, doesn't understand when to call a timeout, when to not call a timeout. Just being able to manage a football game, there's an art to that. If you ever aren't sure what the best way to execute that art is, just cut on your nearest Patriots game. YouTube it. Bill Belichick is a master of that. And we'll discuss why, even his team struggled this past weekend. But some interesting thing that happened during the Cleveland Browns game. I don't know, there's always something weird, right? Odell Beckham and Jarvis Landry had to change their cleats at halftime. The NFL threatened to kick them out of the game if they didn't take off their custom cleats with, I don't know, they always got the goofy colors and all the themes, and it's amazing. If guys spend as much time on their route running, on getting open, getting separation as they did on what cleats they wore, the Browns might have won more than 2 games this year. It's just kind of ridiculous sometimes. But also the NFL, who cares what cleats these guys wear? As a player, I was always very conscientious about the cleats only because the one time a veteran on my team, Warren Sapp, let me wear a pair. We had the same size shoe, and he was sponsored by Jordan, so we always got these dope retro Jordan cleats. And this is back in 07 before they were so common. Now, back then, it was like, oh, whoa, where'd you get those at? And I threw them on, and I got fined one game, and I said, yo, they fined me $7,000 for wearing these cleats. He goes, oh, yeah, they fine me every week, but I just think they're fly. I said, you take that $7,000 loss every week? Yeah, no problem. That's just what he does. It's no big deal. And then I saw his weekly check versus my weekly check, and I understood why that fine was easy for him to take. Broke my heart. I never wore those cleats again for a game because I like to keep as much of my check as I can. But the NFL is very crooked in how they go and try to get the money that they give us back right away with dumb things, right? Like your left sock came down in the third quarter and you didn't pull it up until midway through the third quarter. You were on camera for X amount of minutes with the sock pulled down. That's going to be $4,000. $4,000 for a sock, but that's normal. That's a strange but normal thing in the NFL, and that needs to change. And I don't think people realize these guys are getting hit every time your shirt was untucked for more than X amount of plays. You didn't tuck it back in. That's a fine. they use the wardrobe fines as a way to recoup some of the money, and they say that it goes to the NFL charity. Let me tell you something, folks, it does not. Baker Mayfield, in the post-game press conference, a lot of people make a big fuss about his change of mustache. A lot of guys change clothes. He switched out mustaches. He had a full handlebar Sons of Anarchy mustache before and during the game. Game ends, and all of a sudden, he's just got the, I don't know, the Movember pedophile mustache, whatever you want to call it. I don't know. It's kind of creepy looking. And he was dressed like Will Smith from Pursuit of Happiness, and they lost, and he gave a terrible post-game interview as always, and he always just looks just lost and baffled and confused and not sure what's happening, and everyone just chose to make a big deal about the mustache. I'd like to make a big deal about the interceptions, the turnovers, the fumbles, just the fact that this kid is unraveling. And I hate to be like, I told y'all this was going to happen, but I mean, I did say this league has a way of humbling you, and it seems to humble Baker every single week. And I think a big issue with Baker is he hasn't understood or grasped the NFL quarterback protocols and like the things you have to do in order to be an effective NFL quarterback. And I'm not just talking about just your technique. I'm talking about your mentality, your temperament, the kind of person you have to be a successful NFL quarterback. You cannot be a loudmouth, shit-talking dude that hasn't proved anything but loves to run his mouth. That's not going to work. Like, especially when you're a young player, they're going to watch film, they're going to adapt, and they're going to neutralize you out there, and every team has been doing it to him, and he's just struggling week in and week out, and he really has a lot to work on. And I hope this offseason he takes an approach of, you know what, okay, I get it now. I was exposed, and I have a lot of work to do. Maybe I keep my mouth shut and just start working. But when have we ever seen a team with this high of expectations in the offseason, based on nothing, by the way? I've still never understood where all the expectations came, all because you added a receiver. I've never seen a receiver be the difference in a team winning Super Bowl or not. I've seen offensive lines be the difference. I've seen an amazing quarterback be the difference. I've seen, a defensive player of the year type of defender be the difference, but never a receiver. So that's something that I think people need to look at. Hell, even the best receiver of all time to me, when Randy Moss joined the Patriots, who we thought, they're definitely going to win Super Bowl that year, they didn't. They went undefeated in regular season. They lost to the Giants in the Super Bowl. So you really got to wonder what Cleveland was thinking, and you got to wonder if Baker Mayfield is able to change or if it's just too late. Big time game this weekend. The Ravens played the Patriots, the aforementioned Patriots, and I know we're discussing just how great of a job Bill Belichick does in his game planning and his game day operations as a head coach. He's just one of the best. But I gotta say, he really, really struggled with Lamar Jackson. And everyone that watched that game's got to understand this was more than just about, Lamar Jackson balled out. The offensive line for the Baltimore Ravens is legit. Like, flat out smash you in the mouth legit. They were taking the Patriots defensive linemen and linebackers for rides up and down the field. It looked like they were driving a sled, and Lamar Jackson did what he was supposed to do. He got behind there, he hit those creases, and he used that ability he was blessed with, and it was really, really fun to watch, and it was really, really eye-opening to just what the Patriots need to work on, because everyone was ready to crown the Patriots, and the reality of it is they really, really hadn't played anybody. They just hadn't. Like, when you look at the Patriots' wins and their records and their standings, well, it's like, they're in the AFC East. Like, so you're playing the Jets, you're playing the Miami Dolphins. Like, come on. Beating up on the Cleveland Browns. Like, I don't want to hear, we're fantastic, because you're in the weakest conference in football. And then you go out there and Lamar Jackson just, executes everything he's supposed to do. I was really, really impressed with Mark Ingram, 115 yards on the ground, had some yards receiving, did very good in pass protection. They just looked like a better and more complete and more physical, most importantly, physical football team. Like, they were just physical. Lamar Jackson, you're talking about, 17 completions, 23 attempts, 163, not eye-popping numbers, but rushing another 61 yards on the ground. And then, obviously Ingram's 115 helped. The reality of it is they were able to control the clock, control the pace, and on the flip side, their defense held Tom Brady to 20 points, man. I was like, okay, 46 passing attempts for Tom Brady, only 285 passing, only 1 touchdown, threw an interception. This is a Patriots team that looked like in the face of their first real adversity, they kind of folded. I'm wondering if this team is really the team everyone thought they were going to be. And, by the way, speaking of the Patriots, they made such an interesting move with Josh Gordon. And I don't know that anyone ever really got to the bottom of it. Josh Gordon found out a few weeks ago he was going to be placed on IR a couple weeks ago. Everyone said, well, what's hurt? We know he was banged up, had a hamstring, had a little tweak in his knee, nothing major. When the announcement was made that Josh Gordon was going to be put on IR, he went and, commented on the tweet from Adam Schefter and put interesting, and then commented on someone else and put like the emoji for being confused. That's the passive-aggressive nature of our social media athletes in this era. No one says what they really want to say. They just use an emoji or something weird like that. Whatever. When he put the emoji, it made me think to myself, something's up here. He's either really upset that they're putting him on IR because he doesn't feel like he's hurt enough to be on IR, or he's not hurt at all and he knows they're about to make a completely different move, and this is just Bill Belichick being Bill Belichick. Yep, turns out this is just the Patriots being the Patriots. Josh Gordon was in fact not hurt. We know that now because after he was put on IR, he was claimed almost immediately by the Seattle Seahawks. Pete Carroll went and scooped him up, and he passed his physical right away and is ready to get on the field, which tells me Bill Belichick and the Patriots either didn't trust that Josh was going to be able to stay clean the entire season, or maybe he already did have a failed drug test that they are getting rid of him now before the results hit. I don't know. But he is going to play this week, so I guess we'll have to keep an eye on that moving forward to see if there's any games where he's down or if any news is released there. Or they just did not want any teams in their conference to have a crack at him, so they put him on IR, held him as long as they could, and then released him injured, or at least on their books injured. But obviously he's not injured, so this was just classic Bill Belichick shenanigans, and the Patriots doing over-the-top things just to make sure a guy can't go to a contender or someone that's right in their conference. But he went to the NFC, and he'll be a Seahawk, and he'll be playing this Sunday. So let's look to see how he performs. Another guy placed on IR, and this time it seems like this guy really is done, and that's Cam Newton. And this brings a whole nother discussion to the forefront. Cam Newton placed on IR, got ligaments in his foot that are still sprained. The Liz Frank stuff can be very, very painful for a player in that foot, and it feels good one day, the next day it doesn't. You jog on it, and then the pain flares back up, and you just need to take the whole season off. So Cam Newton's pretty much taken this entire 2019 season off, and Kyle Allen's come in and played very, very well for them. Their defense now is hitting on all cylinders, and it's starting to look like the Panthers just won't need Cam Newton moving forward. Do they want to pay him that last, I don't know, it's like $21 million cap hit he'd be if they were to try to keep him for next season. So you're going to expect that, the Carolina Panthers are actually going to move on from former MVP, league MVP at one point, took his team to the Super Bowl. And now he will probably be released this offseason, and someone's going to get a crack at getting a really good player if he can get himself healthy and they can put the right system around him so that he can thrive and be Cam Newton again. As poorly as he dresses, I still love Cam and want to see him be that great, athletic, big, strong, just complete quarterback that we all knew for a glimpse of time 4 years ago. We watched him and we were like, dude, this kid could be the future of this league. This kid is just next level. I've sacked Cam Newton personally, played against him and got a sack, and thought to myself, good God, this kid's good. Even as I'm trying to drag him down for the sack, I remember thinking, man, this dude is a big, strong dude. He's fast. He's athletic. When you watch him on film, he can put the ball, he has so much velocity on that ball at times. And this is before the shoulder injury. So I think the shoulder is as important as the foot. Really got to get Cam's foot healthy again, and really got to get his shoulder fully healthy. And we got to find out, if there's a system out there that can really utilize his talents. And I'm really hoping that a team finds him, puts him in the right situation. And I just think that would be a really, really good thing for him. But that's something that time will tell. Now, let's just keep on getting through a few different things. The Lakers 6-1, maybe 7-1 by now. Who knows? Beat the Bulls last night. We're down 17 and down at one point 21, 22 points, and we're able to come back and beat the Bulls on LeBron's now third consecutive triple-double. The King is trying to make a push, man. LeBron wants everyone to know he's back. He wants everyone to know he's not washed. He even tweeted out, quote, washed King, basically, saying, I'm not as washed as y'all might think. And when you watch the Lakers game, or you just watch a Lakers game, because I watched the full game the other night, man, LeBron has this ability to just, he can find the upper man. Yeah, he can pass. We know that. But you always forget just how much of a physical specimen he is, even in year 17. And he has this knack for just being able to turn the corner, still has a quick first step. And if he turns the corner and your defense isn't hedging and the help's not there, he's just going to take it all the way to the rim and get a foul and dunk it on you, or laying in the foul. And that's something that it's always going to be a part of his game, being able to penetrate, get in the middle of the defense, and either find the open man or finish at the rim. The day he gets really good at that, just that pull-up mid-range, like right there in the paint, and hits that consistently, is the day, his offense goes to that, unstoppable, Kobe-level offense. Now, he has unstoppable level, everything else, from rebounding, passing, even defense. When he wants to play defense, he picks his spots now. But just to watch him play lately has been really cool to watch his development. He doesn't quite have the old man game yet, where he's just all mid-range and post-ups. And he can do all that stuff. He's still athletic enough that he'll smash it on you, and that's no big deal. He blocks shots at the right time. He's still doing chase downs. The dude's just special. I want to see it against the Clippers. Until it's against the Clippers, I don't care, because I still remember opening night against the Clippers and how he looked and how they looked. And I'm just, But the other night against the Bulls, AD looked terrible. Kuz didn't show up to the fourth quarter. The whole team was really struggling. Kentavious Caldwell-Pope should be arrested for stealing from the Lakers, and I still believe that. I think he'll be the first guy traded before the trade deadline in February. I just think KCP will not be there when they are making that playoff push. He just won't. The guy is just running around getting a check, because he's not running around checking nobody, and he's not scoring, and he even missed a couple free throws to the point where I threw up. The TV controller was like, dog, how are you on if he's on the Lakers, I should be on the Lakers. I could literally give you more than KCP right now. And those who have seen me, y'all know that's real. Okay, don't lie to the people. You know that's real. So whatever. That's the Lakers right now. LeBron, I think, is the early front runner for MVP, just based on what we're all seeing. Sidebar news. And this is not significant news, but it's just an interesting story. We all know the Washington Nationals beat the Houston Astros and won, the pennant, right? They're baseball's best team. That's a fantastic thing. World Series, big deal. I know people aren't watching baseball like they used to, but still a big deal. The catcher from the Washington Nationals, which first of all, the whole team went to, well, almost the whole team. There were a few guys that opted out, but a good handful of the team went to the White House to see the president, and that's pretty cool. I never have an issue with anyone going to the White House, no matter who's in office, right? Whether it was Bush or whether it was I went to the White House and I met George Bush when I was a freshman, and Ohio State won the national championship in 2002, 2003. We went to the White House, got to meet George Bush, shook his hand, we talked for a hot minute. Seemed like a decent guy to me, right? I think that's just for a college team, it's a little bit different. You have to go. It's not about your political affiliation or about making a political statement. It's just an honor to be invited, and you show up. So, and all the kids have to be there, and as they should. I mean, that's just something that you do. It's not a political statement. It's just a tradition, right? So the catcher, Sazuki, right? Kurt Suzuki, the catcher for the Nationals, gets up on the podium, and he pulls out a MAGA hat, and Trump gives him a big old hug, and which is expected. Trump said he didn't plan it. And people just went crazy on Twitter, on IG, and when I say went crazy, I mean a lot of people were upset with Sazuki for wearing the MAGA hat. I think he's born in Hawaii. I think he comes from Japanese descent, hence the Sazuki. And a lot of people are like, oh, I don't understand how an immigrant is supporting Trump. Yada yada. First of all, he didn't immigrate here. He was born in America. He was born in Hawaii. So let's not say that. He might be second generation, might be third. I don't know. That's not the point. Here's the point. And I want people to hear this clearly. I don't care, and we shouldn't care who someone voted for, who someone supports in office, whether they be a sports figure, whether they be a famous person, celebrity, what have you, or your neighbor. And just because you vote for somebody doesn't make this person automatically a bad person, a racist person, or whatever. And I think it's important that people realize just because you don't agree with someone's viewpoints, whether it be political, whether it be spiritual, whether it be, at work or whatever, doesn't mean you don't engage with this person or anyone like them. That's insane. Like this whole, and I know it's called cancel culture now, where we just, so-and-so's canceled because we don't like what they believe in, or we don't think the same way they do. That's crazy. To me, that's madness. That's not how we come together. That's not how we grow. That's not how anything changes. I love that he was brave enough to put that hat on and support the guy that he feels like is the best guy, and that's who he wants to support. That's fine. Just because I may or may not support it doesn't mean that I'm gonna crap on somebody else's, want to support that dude. But it shouldn't have caused that much of an uproar. That actually kind of bothered me. I don't understand sometimes why people can't just say, hey, look, me and this person disagree. It doesn't mean I'm not going to support, the Washington Nationals or that player. It just means that guy believes something I don't believe. No big deal. When Tom Brady was golfing with Trump, I had no problem with it. I think Tom Brady is still the best player in the world, and I think he's such a class act and should be a fantastic example for young quarterbacks from here on out. Hell, I think Baker Mayfield should pay a lot of attention to Tom Brady and what he does. He could learn a lot. That's fantastic. Now, I want to get to the real news, the biggest news of the day, of the week, and that's going to be that the very first college football playoff rankings were put out. And these are essentially, the earliest projections of if there was a playoffs tomorrow, these are the teams that would be in the playoffs. And I think people need to understand that before we go any further. This is just essentially a playoff projection. It doesn't mean these are the teams that are going to be in it. It just means if the playoffs were to happen this weekend, Ohio State would be number 1, LSU would be number 2, Alabama would be number 3. Surprise, surprise, Penn State would be number 4, which bumps Clemson back to number 5, and Georgia, even after having a loss earlier in the season, is still sitting right there at 6. They love keeping Georgia in it. They just love keeping Georgia in it, right? That's just every year. It's how it is. And then Georgia gets in and gets smacked by somebody. But here's some of the things that, I take away from this. 1, Ohio State getting the respect it deserves. Not that it matters right now. Like I said, it's still early. But to see Ohio State at that number 1 spot truly says that, the committee believes in Ohio State's schedule, and the committee believes in Ohio State's talent and what they've done thus far. A lot of the knock on Ohio State was, man, they haven't really played anybody. Like when you really look at their schedule, who have they beaten? And to that, I would say, well, Ohio State's got, a couple quality top 15 wins over Cincinnati and then obviously over Wisconsin. And you can say what you want to about the Wisconsin win, and Cincinnati went and beat another top 15 team in UCF. So we can't argue that they're not a legitimate top 15 team, because they absolutely are. And then when you look at Wisconsin, at one point, the number 1 defense in the country. At the time we played them, a Heisman Trophy candidate, and Jonathan Taylor at the time we played them, and we neutralized both of those things, which tells me that, we are good enough to destroy whoever it is you think is number 1 in whatever category and put our guys in there at number 1, because right after that, our defense was number 1 in the country, and right after that, our running back, JT, was a Heisman candidate. J.K. Dobbins was a Heisman candidate. So Ohio State has proven it week in and week out, not to mention the margin of victory, averaging over 21 points as a margin of victory says a lot, no matter who your competition is. It says that even when you're pushed, you still end up destroying the team and showing who you really are. And our defense is what we hang our hat on, whether we want to admit it or not. It's all about the defense, and it's all about that monster, Chase Young. LSU at number 2. LSU's been playing good all year long. All year long, won a couple tough games, won a couple games that even, some of us thought could have gone either way, and they pulled it out. Joe Burrow has, no one's made a more dramatic improvement from last year to this year than Joe Burrow. Joe Burrow right now is a legitimate top 10 draft pick, and no one would have thought that 2 years ago, right? And now look at him. He's worked his way into where he is. They've executed those RPOs perfectly when it comes down for him to high end off to the running back or pull it out throw that slant, throw that quick sling or sluggo. He's really knocking it down. He's getting all of his reads are accurate. He's tough. He's durable. He's a big, strong kid. He makes good reads. He's athletic enough that he can run with the football when he needs to. But his arm is good enough that he can make all of the throws that he has to in order for them to win. LSU is going to be a tough out in any situation. Cool thing about how all this sets out is that Alabama and LSU are going to have to see each other. And then, obviously the SEC championship will sort everything out in the end. I need to look at this and it makes me wonder what the committee is going to do if a couple different scenarios happen. Now, first I want to give Penn State a huge pat on the back. Penn State coming in one of the 8-0 teams, and they are in that 4 spot, which is pretty cool and says a lot about the Big Ten. That basically says to me the committee now thinks this is an up year for the Big Ten, which means Big Ten teams are going to get a little bit more consideration after a loss. Penn State's only loss is to Ohio State, who was the number 1 team at the time. How can they fall that far, right? If Ohio State plays Penn State in a few weeks and it's a close game and Ohio State beats Penn State by only 1 score, maybe 2 scores, well, then you got to do the same thing you would do if it was Georgia playing Alabama or LSU. You got to keep Penn State, to me, in that 4 spot, maybe bump down to the 5 spot depending on the other games. If LSU beats Bama, that's a huge loss for Bama, and I think Bama's going to really struggle after that, especially because everyone's saying that Tua is now back, right? So if Tua's back and Bama loses that game, to me, I think they're out of it. I just think they are. Their schedule wasn't that strong to begin with. It doesn't get crazy strong in November other than the LSU game. So if that happens, I got to look at Alabama and go, yeah, they're probably out, which means, Georgia, the door's open for them. The SEC championship will still decide everything for the SEC. But Ohio State, Penn State is an interesting one, because if Ohio State does win and then if Penn State for some reason wins and it's a close game, how far back could you really bump Ohio State? Could you bump Ohio State out of the top 4 for losing in a nail-biter to number 4? I mean, I don't know. There's been precedent set for keeping the number 1 team in that top 4, even after they lose to one of the teams in that top 4. We've seen Alabama lose to a top 4 team when they were number 1 and stay in the top 4. So I hope that they would give Ohio State the exact same respect. And then Clemson. Clemson now has to find a way to get back in the top 4, which they will, right? Ohio State's going to beat Penn State. That'll take care of the Clemson being in the top 4 again. Bama, LSU play each other, and by the end of November, this whole thing will look a lot different, and everyone, will go, oh, well, I guess that first college playoff ranking really didn't matter, which it doesn't, but it does set the table for how everything is going to go once November's over. The only reason it matters is because, let's say Ohio State was put at the 4 spot and Penn State was at the 6 spot and Clemson was at the 3 spot and Bama was 2 and LSU was 1, then things get weird, right? Then if Ohio State were to take that loss, they'd for sure be out if they were to lose to the 5, seed when they're the 4 seed. Well, then, yeah, they're out of the top 5. But because they're number 1, if Ohio State were to lose, I think they stay in the top 4. And for the flip side, if Penn State was to win, Penn State bumps to probably 2. Maybe even 1, because you beat the number 1 team and now you're 9-0 with Ohio State under your belt. Well, Penn State would have to be 1. And if it was a close game, how far could you really drop Ohio State? Maybe 5 and put Clemson at 4, after the winner or loser of Alabama gets sorted out. And then you have a situation where Ohio State still has a chance to get back in it. Later on in the season, possible Big Ten championship, or no, that would put Penn State in the Big Ten championship situation. But if Ohio State wins out, beats Michigan, it's still, only a 1-loss team with a top 4 loss, that loss being the number 4 team. That's not a bad resume either, but Ohio State will handle business and win out. I promise you guys this. I don't want to ramble on this topic. I just want to say that this is an interesting projection, and I'm kind of a big fan. Now, I also want to look at something that that Jim Harbaugh said. That team up north's coach, that's Michigan. We call them that team up north here in Ohio. And Michigan, man, just Jim Harbaugh, Michigan. You never know, like Jekyll and Hyde, this team, like who's going to show up. They look horrible all year, and then they kick the crap out of Notre Dame. I don't know if that says more about Notre Dame or them. And then you watch them struggle again and then come back and win another game. And you look at Michigan and go, I don't know who this team really is. But their head coach, Jim Harbaugh, did say that, listen, the committee, so far has gotten it right because they only have 4 teams to pick from, but they need to expand the field. He has not just an idea of expanding the field to 16 teams, but he has a specific plan that he's proposed and wants to propose to the committee. And the plan is basically 11 teams and 15 games spanning from the first week of December to the first week of January. This plan is going to include getting rid of league championships, right? So no Power 5 conference championships. The conferences would determine their champions with the 12-game schedule. So I guess whoever has the best schedule after the 12 weeks, that's who the conference champ is. And you take those 5 champions and you take 6 other teams, including whoever the top non-Power 5 team is. So that could be Notre Dame or a couple other teams. 5 at-large teams using the old BCS system of computer strength of schedule. And the bottom 6 teams would play on the weekend that's usually reserved for the conference championships. And then the losers of these games would be thrown into the bowl game pool, whereas the winners advance on, and then, things narrow themselves down on Heisman Trophy weekend. We'd have a national quarterfinals, and that still would have the semifinals be on New Year's Day, and the title game a week after New Year's Day, like it usually is anyway. So I gotta say, I don't hate this. I think King Kaki is a nutcase. I think he's a strange guy that even his players struggle to relate to, and I don't think he'll be Michigan's head coach much longer. He's on the hottest of seats, and if he loses to Ohio State, especially if it's by a lot this year, I think that's going to be one more step closer to him being done in Michigan. But I do have to say, I think it's a good plan, actually. I think it needs to be expanded. I think if Ohio State last year would have been in the playoffs, even if it was an 8-game or 8-team playoffs, I think Ohio State would have ended up as one of the last 2 teams. I think they would have been playing for the national championship. They were that talented, and their defense didn't get going till late in the season. And I just think that, we can say that about a few other teams in years past, and 4 teams is not enough. It's just not enough. That's not even enough for the 5 conference champs, from the Power 5. So I think a lot needs to change, and I think that's going to happen in the next 4 years. But for right now, these early projections, yeah, I like them. Don't be surprised if you guys see my Buckeyes playing for a Nash this year. I don't want to jinx it. I'm not going to say it. I'm going to wrap it up. I don't even want to jinx it. I don't want to jinx my guys. I'm not going to say it. I'm just going to wrap it up. That has been episode 21 of the 2 Cents Podcast. I want to thank you guys. As always, please subscribe to the 2 Cents Show. That's on IG. Myself, Mr. Richardson on IG. If you want to tweet at me, or if you just want someone to argue with on Twitter, I love that kind of stuff. It's JRichardson99. Holla at your boy. Please, as always, feedback, any ideas for topics or things that you guys want us to get into. I have a very special guest coming on the show next week. Look forward to that. I won't announce that yet, but you guys are definitely want to tune into that one. And as always, you folks, have a fantastic day.